The fastest passenger aircraft was the Concorde. Even though the Concorde was an engineering marvel and its design was beautiful, it was still a failure. It was extremely expensive. It had much more maintenance, especially for the people beneath it when it's flying over, because all they're hearing is this when it passes by. The Concorde flew for the very last time in the year 2003, and Airbus completely shut down the program forever. But this doesn't mean that different companies all around the world aren't looking for the same thing but better. There are a lot of companies that always were looking for a way to create an aircraft that could be an airliner and go faster than Mach 1 or faster than the speed of sound. A lot of experts and engineers believe that we need speed like this around the globe. It's almost necessary to have faster airliners, but it has to be logical as well. It can't cost a fortune to get on this airplane. One of the places that went towards this direction was NASA. They were trying to engineer and figure out a way to create an airliner that could go faster than the speed of sound, and when it does break the sound barrier, it doesn't produce a lot of noise, just a little thump. Their goal was to make it at least go as fast as Mach 1, not be unsafe, affordable tickets like the Concorde, and most importantly, when it's flying, it does not keep exploding up above. You have to know that NASA is a government agency and it's not a private company like Lockheed Martin or Boeing. And that is why they were forced to partner up with an aircraft company like Lockheed Martin to produce what they wanted. This wasn't the first time that Lockheed Martin and NASA partnered up, because the SR-71 was made for NASA as well. Eventually, all that years working together, they formed another aircraft, the X-59. Just like we said, NASA is not an aircraft company where they just produce it and start testing. They needed help to produce this thing. And of course, they're not building the X-59 to sell it to anyone. This is fully made only for testing, and it's not considered a prototype or a concept. If you didn't know, the Concorde was outlawed in the US, and you couldn't fly it over US cities because it would keep blowing the sound barrier, which is why they made it illegal in 1973 for you to fly the Concorde over the United States. You can fly it from Europe to the East Coast like New York or Florida, but you cannot go inland. And you can fly back to Europe. Even though Concorde is no longer around, these laws still exist in the United States. And you still cannot have an airliner that could blow the sound barrier and pass over the United States. But NASA has other plans. They want to create an aircraft that's so quiet when it blows the sound barrier that the government is forced to change the law to have an airliner like this. You could kind of consider this design like a silencer you put on a gun. It quiets it down real nice, but not too quiet. I mean, just look at the design. Isn't it weird? Since it's a single-seater, it's 30 meters long, but just the nose alone is 10 meters. 1/3 of the airplane is just the nose, but it's extremely effective. And the nose is one of the reasons that when the X-59 breaks the sound barrier, it actually quiets it down real nice. After passing this ginormous nose, you have all these tiny wing flaps that are engineered in a way so they can quiet down the sonic boom even more. The man you're seeing is Michael Buonanno, the engineering lead at Lockheed Martin. He said in the beginning, we had designed a front window for the pilot so they can see outside. But after years of testing and experimenting, they realized that they have to get rid of this front window because it creates an edge, and that's a problem in diffusing the sonic boom sound. So when you look at this airplane, it's extremely weird because there's no front window. But there are multiple cameras up front that visually show the pilot everything, even better than any window ever could. Basically, it's a 4K monitor in front of him, and all the cameras combine into one so they can completely see in front of them like the entire cockpit is made of glass. You could say this design helped the aerodynamics, and the reason it could be quieter in a sonic boom, because it looks kind of like a missile rather than an aircraft, and it cuts air nicer than any airplane you've ever seen. The technology that's used in this aircraft is kind of like the human eye. It's a combination of all types of cameras throughout the aircraft, and it shows it into one vision, kind of like how you see everywhere in one vision. This is done with a combination of cameras. NASA has decided to use a single engine design, the General Electric F414. After the engine, when you look at the exhaust, it has a unique design because it has an edge at the bottom, and this was completely intentional. This also helps with the noise, and of course when the sonic boom happens, this helps quiets it down. The engine is rather sitting on top of the aircraft rather than at the bottom, and the edge does not affect the performance. It is nearly 20 years when NASA designed something like this, and they're continuing to work at it. But why did it take so long for them to reveal it and actually build a prototype of it? It's because in the modern world, especially after the 21st century, engineers, companies especially, don't want to spend a whole lot in making a prototype and concept like back in the day and waste a whole lot of money, sometimes billions of dollars, to start testing on an aircraft when you can do everything inside the computer. In modern computers, you can do all types of testings and get accurate results without spending billions of dollars in research and development in building a whole prototype. That's the reason they actually built it. Because the tests were going so well, they wanted to test inside the atmosphere and see how accurate it is. The example was made in Southern California, and the first tests are going to happen there as well. Since there's a lot of populated cities around the city of Los Angeles, it's a perfect spot to test it and see what the public says. Maybe they don't even notice it. This is one of the most important parts of the test, to see if it actually passes over a city without the people getting mad. Lockheed knows if this design passes the test, they can build an airliner that could be much better than the Concorde and do something that the Concorde couldn't. But it seems like Lockheed Martin is not alone and it cannot monopolize on this design. Since most of the rights is owned by NASA and NASA is a government agency, they're going to give most of this information away to American aircraft manufacturers like Boeing. So Lockheed Martin would not be alone in this type of race. But since Lockheed Martin has had a huge head start from the other ones, they know what they're doing and they're going to be ahead of the race. Lockheed Martin has also announced that they are already working on a prototype supersonic airliner, and they called it the QSTA-1. And this name stands for the Quiet Supersonic Technology Airliner. You could say Lockheed Martin's design was also influenced by the X-59. Lockheed Martin's design can fit 40 people in it, and it could move at a speed of Mach 1.8, which is about 2,220 kilometers an hour. This is an absurd speed when you think about it, because a regular airliner like a 747 or a 787 moves at a speed of 760 kilometers an hour. So you're more than double the speed, which is why when you go from, let's say, London to New York, instead of taking more than 6 hours, it's going to take less than 3. And something like this could be truly amazing if it works out. We say if it works out because the Concorde could move at the same speed, but it ended up being a failure at the end of the day. The Concorde made a lot of noise, it was extremely expensive, and because it was so expensive, most of the time it would not fill up, and it would fly half empty. But the goal Lockheed Martin and NASA have is to make it more affordable, where almost any American can fly. Alongside NASA and Lockheed Martin, you have another American company that's trying to make a supersonic airplane, Boom Supersonics. This company has invested a whole lot of money into it, and they're very serious in creating an aircraft like this. And some even say the Boom company is going to be ready much sooner than NASA or Lockheed Martin. These companies' goals is to make airliners that could be extremely fast and move people around the globe faster than ever. If it doesn't work out, it's going to be another Concorde, but if it does, it will be revolutionary.